Let me tell you something interesting about compliments. Most people think they're simple, harmless gifts, a kind word, a little praise, a moment of appreciation. But for some people, a compliment feels less like kindness and more like a spotlight they never asked for. You've probably seen it before. You tell someone, "You look great today," and they immediately shake their head. You say, "You're really talented," and they laugh it off like you're exaggerating. You tell them, "You did an amazing job," and they say, "Oh, it was nothing." It's almost like they're allergic to being valued, like praise makes their skin itch. And you start to wonder why. Why is it so hard for some people to accept something as simple as, "You did well"? Why does a compliment feel like a warning instead of a gift? The truth is, for people who struggle with compliments, it's never really about the compliment itself. It's about the identity clash happening underneath. When someone says something good about them, it doesn't land on top of confidence. It lands on top of doubt. And doubt doesn't know what to do with kindness. Because here's the secret most people don't see. A compliment isn't just words. It's a mirror. And mirrors are uncomfortable when you've spent years avoiding your own reflection. For some people, praise feels like pressure. Like now they have to live up to something. For others, praise feels untrue, like the other person is seeing something they can't. And for many, praise feels dangerous. Because the last time someone was nice, there was a joke, a twist, or a hidden punchline waiting behind it. So instead of smiling, they deflect. Instead of accepting, they reject. Instead of saying thank you, they say, "No, I'm not." Deflection becomes protection. Self-dismissal becomes a habit. And soon, rejecting compliments becomes as automatic as breathing. But what changed? When did "You're beautiful," "You're smart," or "I'm proud of you" stop feeling good and start feeling wrong? Maybe it started in childhood. Growing up in a home where praise was rare, but criticism was constant. Where nothing you did was ever enough. Where the only time you got attention was when something was wrong. So when someone says something kind now, your brain treats it like an error message. This doesn't match the data. Or maybe you grew up being mocked the moment you believed something good about yourself. You smiled, and someone said, "Don't get full of yourself." You tried, and someone said, "You think you're special now?" So now compliments don't feel safe. They feel like a setup. Like if you accept it, someone will laugh and say, "Relax, I was just joking." Some people can't take compliments because they've built an entire personality around being invisible. They survived by being unnoticed, unproblematic, quiet, small. Now when someone sees them, really sees them, it feels like exposure, not love. And then there are people who think compliments are lies, not because the speaker is dishonest, but because self-doubt has become their truth. When you say, "You're kind," they think, "If only you knew the real me." When you say, "You're talented," they think, "Anyone could have done that." When you say, "I admire you," they think, "You're just being polite." It's not arrogance. It's not rudeness. It's a quiet war between who they are and who they think they're allowed to be. Compliments don't feel good when your self-worth is shaped around earning love instead of receiving it. Some people don't know how to take a compliment simply because no one ever taught them how. No one ever said, "You're allowed to feel proud without being guilty." No one ever said, "You don't have to reject good things to appear humble." No one ever said, "You don't have to shrink to be acceptable," because somewhere along the way, they learned that acceptance was a threat. That approval was temporary. That praise came with conditions. That being noticed meant being evaluated. And so they built their safety inside silence, self-minimizing, and emotional distance. And yet, even as they downplay compliments, something strange happens inside them. A small ache, a quiet longing. A part of them wants to believe the words, wants to feel worthy, wants to say, "Thank you. Maybe that is true about me." But the gap between the way they are seen and the way they see themselves is too wide to cross in a single sentence. So the compliment gets rejected, not because it was unwanted, but because it landed in a place still learning how to receive. And that is the hidden truth behind people who can't take compliments. It's not that they don't want to be appreciated. They just don't know how to let appreciation reach the parts of them that still feel unworthy. They are not rejecting your kindness. They are rejecting a version of themselves they don't recognize yet. That's why a simple phrase like, "You did great," hits harder than it should. Because beneath the surface, it's not just a compliment. It's identity, history, self-worth, fear, memory, and healing all colliding in one moment. And maybe the most powerful compliment in the world isn't the words we give them, but the patience to keep saying them until they finally believe one. Some people think rejecting compliments is just insecurity, but it goes much deeper than that. It's not just low self-esteem. It's not just awkwardness. It is psychology wrapped in memory, a reaction that was learned, shaped, reinforced, and repeated over years. Because nobody is born unable to accept good things about themselves. That ability is either nurtured into us or broken out of us. One of the most common reasons people can't take compliments is because the version of themselves in their mind doesn't match the version other people claim to see. So when someone says, "You're so smart," but your inner voice says, "No, I just got lucky," there's no emotional alignment. The compliment doesn't land. It bounces off the wall built to survive years of self-doubt. This is called self-concept dissonance. When your internal identity rejects external praise because it feels incorrect. To you, the compliment doesn't feel like kindness. It feels like a mistake that needs to be corrected. Someone says, "You look beautiful today." Your brain replies, "They're just being nice, don't be fooled." Someone says, "You're really talented." Your brain whispers, "If they knew the real me, they wouldn't say that." Someone says, "You helped me so much." And instead of feeling appreciated, you feel guilty, like you didn't do enough to deserve that level of gratitude. This is not humility. This is self-protection disguised as modesty. When compliments feel unsafe, it's usually because the person grew up in an environment where praise was either rare, unpredictable, or mixed with pain. Maybe they were only acknowledged when they achieved something. Maybe they were praised one moment, insulted the next. Maybe every kind word was followed by a criticism like a shadow. "Good job, but next time do better." "You're smart, but don't act like you know everything." "You look nice, but you should lose weight." Praise becomes a trap. Approval becomes conditional. Love becomes something earned, not given. So now, when someone offers a genuine compliment, the brain doesn't feel warmth. It feels alert, suspicious, confused. Because if you never learned how to receive, every form of emotional kindness feels like an emotional threat. Some people can't take compliments because they were raised to believe that pride is dangerous, that being confident makes you arrogant, that liking yourself is the same as thinking you're better than others. So they learned how to shrink, how to stay invisible, how to avoid attention even when the attention is positive. And then there are people who struggle with compliments because they suffer from something quieter, imposter syndrome. They don't just believe they're not good enough. They believe they've been pretending the whole time. That one day, people will figure out they're not smart, not talented, not impressive, just good at hiding their flaws. So when you compliment them, their brain doesn't think, "Thank you." It thinks, "Please don't look too closely. I don't deserve this." That's why they laugh it off. That's why they change the subject. That's why they point out something wrong with themselves immediately after you point out something right. It's not rejection of the praise. It's rejection of the spotlight it brings. Because compliments don't just say, "I see something good in you." They say, "I am looking at you." And being looked at is terrifying when you've spent your whole life trying to stay unnoticed. Some people also associate compliments with manipulation. They've known people who use praise the way hunters use bait. They were flattered just before being abandoned, complimented just before being mocked, loved just long enough to be hurt. So now a compliment feels like the beginning of a trick, not the beginning of connection. They don't trust kind words because the people who spoke them were not kind. But here's the most heartbreaking part. Many people who can't accept compliments secretly wish they could. In their silence, they replay the words later. They think about them before bed. They wonder what it would feel like to just say thank you without panic exploding in their chest. They don't want to reject love. They just don't know how to believe it. Because beneath the surface, every compliment touches an old wound. "You're worthy" collides with "I'm not enough." "You're talented" collides with "anyone could do better." "You're beautiful" collides with "I've never felt that way about myself." "You did great" collides with "I could have done more." Compliments don't heal that wound. They expose it, and the person reacts. Not to the compliment, but to the bruise it pressed down on. Which means the problem is never about learning how to say thank you. It's about learning how to live in a world where you deserve to hear it. So if someone can't take a compliment, don't assume they're ungrateful, or dramatic, or fishing for more praise. Compliment resistance is not ego. It's emotional history. It is what happens when the mind gets so used to the idea, "I am not enough," that any attempt to challenge it feels like a lie. And until the person learns to rewrite that belief, every compliment you give them will feel like a language from a world they don't belong to, yet. The hardest part about learning to accept a compliment isn't the words. It's the belief behind them. Because for someone who spent years shrinking themselves, being seen, truly seen, is not comforting. It's unsettling. It's unfamiliar. It feels like standing in sunlight after living too long in a room with dim lights. It's warm, yes, but it also hurts the eyes. People often say, "You just need to learn to say thank you." But this isn't about manners. This is about identity. You cannot accept what you don't believe you deserve. And you cannot believe you deserve something if your entire life taught you the opposite. So the real healing doesn't start when someone compliments you. It starts when you stop arguing with the possibility that it might be true. It starts when a part of you whispers, "Maybe they're not lying. Maybe they see something real. Maybe I don't have to reject every good thing that comes toward me." Because accepting a compliment is not just receiving someone's words. It is agreeing, even if just for a moment, to see yourself through someone else's kinder eyes. And at first, that will feel wrong. It will feel like you're pretending. It will feel like you're stealing a praise you didn't earn. But that feeling is not truth. It is habit. It is the echo of old voices that told you small was safer. And when you begin to grow past those echoes, you realize something powerful. Receiving a compliment does not make you arrogant. It makes you open. It makes you real. It makes you human. Because humility is not shrinking. Humility is being able to say, "Yes, I still have flaws, but that doesn't erase what I've done right." People who can't take compliments don't need to learn confidence. They need to learn permission. Permission to feel good about themselves, without guilt, without fear, without preparing for someone to take it away. Healing begins when the mind learns to pause, when instead of rejecting a compliment, you let it sit. You don't have to instantly believe it, but don't throw it away. Let the words exist. Let them touch something inside you, even if it's uncomfortable. Let the sentence, "You did well," live in a place in your memory that doesn't destroy it, because over time, something strange happens. The brain gets used to warmth. Kindness stops feeling like a trap. Praise stops sounding like a lie. You don't argue with the mirror anymore. You don't shrink when someone sees your light. You don't panic when someone notices what's good in you. And maybe one day you take the compliment without flinching, without rejecting, without needing to offer excuses or disclaimers. Not because you suddenly think you're perfect, but because you finally learned that being appreciated doesn't require perfection. Some people think healing means becoming strong, but in this case, healing means becoming soft again, soft enough to receive instead of deflect, soft enough to allow love without suspicion, soft enough to believe that the good someone sees in you is not accidental. The truth is, every compliment someone gives you is a piece of emotional evidence that the world doesn't see you the way your fear does. The people who appreciate you aren't imagining it. They aren't confused. They aren't being polite. They are seeing something you've forgotten how to notice in yourself. And maybe the real journey is not learning how to say thank you to others, but learning how to say you're worth it to yourself. Because the moment you can accept kindness without arguing with it, you're not just accepting a compliment. You're accepting your own existence with value. So if you're someone who freezes when someone praises you, someone who lowers their eyes, someone who apologizes for being appreciated, someone who thinks, if only they knew the real me, please understand something. They do see the real you, just not the version you punish. They see the version you bury, the version you silence, the version that doesn't get enough air. And that is why the world keeps complimenting you, not to flatter you, but to remind you of the parts of you that you've forgotten to love. You don't have to believe every compliment right away. Just stop destroying them before they can reach you. Because one day, you will look back at the compliments you used to reject and realize they weren't exaggerations. They were previews. They were hints of the person you were always becoming. And when that day comes, you won't just be able to take a compliment, you'll finally understand why they were true. Until then, let the words stay. Let them exist, even if they feel too big for you right now, because one day they will fit.